Welcome to Aging Gracefully. I want you to live a long, healthy life without regrets. And today, I have someone who definitely has no regrets, right, Bob?
That's right.
My friend Bob Adamov, who is definitely aging gracefully. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we met at a networking event 6 months at least ago, right?
Right.
And I said right away, ooh, I want to have you on my show. Bob, you're an author, and all of these books have been written by you, and you've got more that are coming.
Right. Number 13 is in editing, and I'm starting to draft number 14.
Yeah. So that is exciting. I am finishing number 12 right now, and I can barely put it down, but I had to, so I could come here and be here with you today. So I always ask my guests how old they are. So could you tell?
70 years old now.
70 years old.
Or young, I should say.
That's right. And so I love this, the message too, that even when you're retired, that doesn't mean you just sit around and do nothing, right?
Right. I'll never completely retire.
I know.
Always, I'm too high energy.
And you do what you love.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit of like your history. Did you grow up in this area? Are you a Clevelander? Where?
I grew up in Norton on a small farm that's just outside of Barberton. And we raised chickens and sheep and ducks. So it was a lot of fun growing up there.
All right. That's a totally different experience that so many other people have. So then you went to college locally. Did you go away?
Went to Kent State and was there in 1970 when they had the shootings. And then kicked off my career at Goodyear and worked at Goodyear for about 23 years.
It's a difficult time. There's very few people I know that were actually there at Kent, so that's interesting. But then Goodyear, many years, and then I think you worked a number of different jobs and ended up retiring from a defense contractor?
Right. I had taken a job in Worcester, Ohio for Technographics, and we were acquired by CACI in DC. So I telecommuted into DC, worked there, and timing couldn't have been better because I was working on a book, Sandusky, that had a lot of scenes in DC. So after work, I was walking and doing the research, going into restaurants, checking out the different areas in DC.
So I love this too. So you were writing while you were working. There was a time it all overlapped.
Right.
Yeah, doing both. So have you always loved to write? Was it just something you pursued in later years?
I wanted to write since I was 8 years old. And back then, Mom used to take us into Akron. She dropped my brother off at the Akron Art Institute, and I got dropped off at the main branch of the Akron Public Library. I got to spend my mornings with my favorite authors. So that kind of hatched the idea about writing one day. And in my business career, I've done a lot of public relations work, training, speeches, a lot of executive coaching. And so it set the stage. I wrote skits in church, and I actually started off in radio and TV before I switched over to business at Kent.
All right, so you've always had some kind of writing, and the passion just continued. And then, as you got older, decided, well, maybe I just take this part a little bit further.
Right. Turning 50 didn't bother me, but for some reason, 51 hit me like a ton of bricks. And I wanted to reach out and realize that dream of writing. So I sat down, started working on the first book, Rainbow's End.
But it wasn't that fast, was it? It took a while. Didn't it take a year or two before it's actually a book?
It did. Yeah, I was a beginner. I was talking to other authors, trying to understand, the publishing business and editing and how to write. And then the first book, by the time I got everything done, it was launched October 19th, 2002.
And by the way, you're married. You have a wife named Kathy. I'm excited to meet some point too. So she must be pretty used to your habits. Can you tell me about writing habits? Because I know every author has their own routine, their patterns and that. I have a lot of writer friends. So tell me about yours.
Sure. Well, when I was working full time, I would usually write on Saturday and Sunday morning from 6 o'clock until maybe 10. Then when I retired, I can write at my leisure. And what's really unusual for me is to find me writing in the afternoons or the evenings. I'm really a morning person. I prefer to write in the morning. But that's evolved into a writing season. And it seems like the months of July and August, when it's really hot out, and I don't want to be out there hawking books in the hot sun, I'm in my basement office where it's nice and cool, head down, and I do a ton of writing in those 2 months.
All right, now you brought up this summer. So let me just say, too, you are known as an island author. Now, very often in my life, I've gone to the islands here, the Lake Erie Islands, in the summer months. And so Lake Erie Islands and Worcester, where you live, Detroit, Key West, Cuba, you've got a lot of places in those books, but the islands are the recurrent theme throughout, right?
Right. Our
Tell
hero is
me about-
domiciled in Put-in-Bay. And so why Put-in-Bay? Because the first time I rode around the ferry around Gibraltar Island and I saw Put-in-Bay, and I was 18, and I thought, what a perfect setting for a book. So all those years had perked. And when it was time to sit down and write, The Rainbow's End, the first 80 pages, because I like Civil War, were based on Johnson's Island, the prison camp, and an attempted raid, which I then fictionalized. And then we carry over with our Washington Post investigative reporter going to Put-in-Bay to see his aunt. So all the stories have something to do with Put-in-Bay.
And they all have something to do with Emerson Moore.
Right.
That's your main character.
Right.
How did you create this character?
Well, the Emerson came from my first boss at Goodyear. He was my role model, John Emerson. And the Moore came from a good friend of mine, Jack Moore. When I was writing skits in church, if I was going to be Fred Flintstone, he was Barney. If I was Yogi Bear, he was Boo Boo. He'd always play up for whatever character I needed him to be. So that's where the character's name came from.
So Emerson Moore, then he's a detective or
Investigative reporter.
There we go. And
Right.
so he's always doing things undercover and getting himself in trouble and getting out of trouble. And what I really love about these books too is that you've got real people mixed in, real places. So I told you, when I'm reading your books, I have my phone with me because I get to a certain page and I go, wait a minute, is this real? And I start Googling, yes, that's a real restaurant. Those are real people. So it's so fun because it's fiction, but it's real life. And there's quite a bit of research, as you mentioned. So there's some real history in there too.
Right. Now, I had to make 3 research trips to the Cayman Islands when I did that book. But somebody had to go to research it.
Gee, I feel really bad for you. So the one I'm reading now, that on the top there, Flight, your 12th book, that's set in Cuba.
Right.
So there's some real interesting information there too.
And we start off with 1928 with a Pinkerton in a Ford Tri-Motor chasing a treasure train down to Key West. Neither make their destination. So Emerson goes undercover using an alias that he's used in a past book, Manny Elias, and he goes to work in Booger Blake's bar. Let's say that 3 times real fast. And he's trying to understand the drug trafficking that's going on between Key West and Cuba. And he ends up going into Cuba and going into the lair of the drug lord.
And that's where I'm at. I know that he's going to survive because there's more books, right? So I know he is. But I'm at a place where I'm wondering about the character he's with. Is she on his side? Or is she a different kind of agent? I'm trying to figure this out. So I have just a little bit left to go. It's super exciting, though. I love your style of writing.
Oh, thank you.
You had mentioned, or I read somewhere about that you're kind of the Clive Cussler of the Great Lakes, right? Yeah. And you like his style?
Yes. When I started writing, I tried to emulate his writing style. So Rainbow's End with Civil War for the first 80 pages, then jumping up to modern times with a tie back to what happened in the Civil War. I actually got a chance to meet Clive. We connected. He's read a couple of my books, and I've spoke at 4 of his conventions now, and he is an absolute gentleman.
That's fun. How fun. And you get to meet people all over the place because, in fact, I know you're going to be at an event this weekend too. So you take your books with you and people can meet you in person and buy from you right there.
Right.
Are they also sold online?
Yes, I sell them on my website with free shipping,
Okay.
and that's bobadamov.com.
Okay.
And they're in all major bookstores, and a lot of the gift shops along the lakefront have the books too.
And if you go to the islands, right?
Yes.
Aren't they sold up there?
Oh, they're all over Put-in Bay.
Yeah, you're pretty well known up there.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've been very supportive. I couldn't do it without them.
I love the islands. And for those who are islanders too, your good buddy, shall we mention his name?
Mad Dog?
Mad Dog is a rude and crude and fun guy, right? That's been having fun up there for 40 years. And actually,
Right.
he's the one that gave me the last book, the one that I'm reading right now.
I
How
put
fun.
Mike in my books as a character.
Yes.
And that started with The Other Side of Hell. And when you open up the book cover, inside is 11 CDs, or 11 song CD from Mike, singing some of his favorite tunes from the islands.
That's great. Okay, so I had kind of copied down some of these things too. You've got all kinds of good things happening. You've had a lot of recognition. Featured author at the 2006 Ernest Hemingway Days Literary Festival in Key West.
Right.
Named Writer of the Year by University of Akron's Wayne College in 2010. You've already mentioned the Clive Cussler Collectors Society conventions you've spoken at, and let's see what else. You want to mention some other?
London Book Festival, Hollywood Book Festival,
Great Midwest
Great-
Book Festival.
New York Book Festival. And
Indie Awards.
my book was a runner-up as the top fiction novel in the Great Lakes, and it was beat out by a Pulitzer Prize winner out of Detroit. That's my first book, Rainbow's End, and I was stunned. I just didn't expect that type of recognition.
Oh, fantastic. So I know all of my writer friends are going to wonder, okay, did he self-publish? And you did.
I did.
Right? Let's talk about that real quick.
I wanted to invest in myself. I talked to other authors, and I heard about all the rejection letters they were getting from literary agents and publishers in New York. And I decided to go ahead and invest in myself. And I linked up with a publisher to help me self-publish, and we started pushing the books out. And now all my books are self-published, and they've done very well.
And you said that you've learned a lot too. So I don't know if you had a loss, but you didn't do as well on the first, but then you learned that much more about self-publishing and how to self-promote and
Right.
really make it happen, get them out there.
Right. I spent a lot of money on advertising, a lot of money on marketing, and I was a rookie. I made a lot of mistakes, and so I learned from that. And right now I'm at the point where I just call the printer and say, I have the manuscript, print. I have got everything else done. So I've been eliminating a lot of the middlemen and a lot of the middle costs.
I'm going to have to invite you to my writers group at some point soon, because I know they would love to talk with you about these things. And I love the point that you didn't quit. You know, the first one, you said you made a lot of mistakes, but you know, some people would have maybe just said, okay, this was too much work. But instead, you stayed in there, you kept writing, and you kind of perfected your system.
I worked at it.
Yes, I love that about you. All right, I think it's time for our ageless advice. Are you ready, Bob?
Sure.
Okay. I think this will probably be an easy one for you because you already mentioned something about a role model. So my question is, Bob, would you recommend that people have a role model, a mentor, or an idol?
I do, a role model, because they can be such an influencer, and then you want to emulate them in the way they conduct themselves, and they help give you a vision for what you want to become yourself.
All right. And the gentleman that you mentioned, who was your first...
John Emerson, my first boss at Goodyear.
Yeah. In what ways do you think he impacted you?
He was one of the most honest people I have ever run across, and fair, and he wanted to help build you, to encourage you, and I learned a lot from him about that. He was a strong Christian, and I liked that about him. He always wanted to do the right thing. That really impressed me.
Those are great characteristics to want to actually embody and take with you. That's wonderful. Second question, Bob. Do you think there's a time that it's too late to reach for your dreams?
It's never too late. And I actually talk about that. So I started when I was 51. I wish I had started writing earlier. But you know, I encourage people to go out there and reach for their dreams.
Do you see a time that you would actually stop?
No, I don't. I'm having too much fun. The interview process, you know, I never know who I'm going to run into, and some of the stories I hear, and it's just, I love the research part. Why would I give up something I enjoy?
Well, that's great, and we're lucky that you continue. Bob, what is your secret to aging gracefully?
Well, I try to keep a positive attitude. I got that from my mom. And I look for ways to try to positively impact other people and to encourage other people. Can I give positive touches to others? I want to do that. I've been very blessed with my career, and I want to help others.
That's wonderful. I love everything about you, your books as an author, all that you share with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
And for my viewers, I know you enjoyed this interview. And please, if you haven't been to my website, please do, www.aginggracefully.tv, where you can watch this interview over and over, or others that would be inspiring to you as well. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you.